G'day punters and welcome to another episode of the Footy Form Guide podcast. I'm of course your host Walley, joined again, his second week back, second up off the bye. He should be very good this week. Harro, how are you, mate?
Yeah, really good, Wally. Geez, it's getting towards the business end now, isn't it? So it's very exciting, everything that's going on in the footy. So we're really looking forward to getting into it, mate.
Yep, very good, mate. Before we get into it, we're going to launch straight into the games this week. No questions off social, just due to time constraints, but we'll have heaps next week, so don't worry, punters. Highs and lows from the weekend, Harro.
Okay, Wally. So, yeah, did a bit of an audit of last week's podcast and whatnot. And all in all, mate, another very solid week. It seems like it's just Groundhog Day, isn't it? All of these reviews. We haven't had one of these reviews yet that's a little bit like the room of mirrors, or, you got to sit around in a circle and give each other a bit of stick.
Leading teams.
What do they call it? Leading teams.
Leading teams.
We haven't needed leading teams yet this season. It's all been positive. So we started on the Thursday night, mate, with the Lions as the best bet against the Blues. And that obviously covered really easily. That was a pretty easy watch. And now the best bet's just gone 4 in a row. So we sort of said that we would get on a run with these. At some point, we had a lot of close losses earlier in the season, but we're well ahead on the ledger on that front now. We rolled into Friday night. We liked the Suns against the Pies, and that got the job done. We also liked Noble and Anderson, and they both got it done as well. So we rolled into the Saturday. We liked the Crows Dogs over total points, and we also like the key forwards, and we spoke a lot about that in the preview, and we saw that Thilthorpe kicked his 6. I think that paid $41, anyone that was clever enough to jump on that. Also, Fogarty got his 3, so that was pleasing. We like the over total points in the GWS Geelong game. You actually like GWS, so well done there as well. Dons versus the Tigs, we liked Zach Merritt. We didn't talk about it a hell of a lot more in that game. We were just really keen on Zach Merritt, and he had 20 at half time, and you thought you were home. And then I think he only had 3 or 4 in the third quarter because they put a tag onto him, but he got there in the end. Freo Hawks, we couldn't come up with a lot, but we did say either team under 20 was our bet in that one as well. The Sunday, we had a few misses on the Sunday, but our main highlight on the Sunday was Zach Butters, who we were really strong on to get his 30. He did that. So all in all, mate, a very pleasing weekend.
Very, very good. Harro, was there any lows? Did we really miss much?
Well, last week we had the Saturday train paying $30. We missed by 1 leg. We ran a Saturday train again on the weekend, and it missed by 1 leg. And this week it was Wayne Malira. It was paying $20 as well, this. And he needed 14 for our bet. He had 9 at half time. He finished with 12. So that was a bit of a heartbreaker, mate.
Harro, and I was watching the game because I was at that game, and Adelaide just controlled it. And you know when the ball's just running down one side and he's on the other side every time, and then when it hits his wing, he's on the bench. And it was just like, he didn't put in a stinker at all. It was just one of those unlucky ones. Every time he got near the ball, he got the ball, he used it well enough. It wasn't like one of those ones where you see them running around and just can't, you know when you see a player and you feel like they're next to the footy, but they just don't get their hands on it. It wasn't one of those. So as weird as it was watching it live, I was like, this is unlucky, but I'm weirdly okay with this. Also, all the other leagues hadn't clicked yet. It was the first game. Exactly. It's always easier to go at the first leg than lose in the last. But, mate, that's fantastic.
Just one other one. I think a lot of punters got burnt by this one on the weekend. It was Connor Rosie in the last game of the round. And, look, we sort of tipped him up, but it didn't really cost us a lot. But I felt for all the other punters out there who were on Rosie, because I think it was a decent price for 25, and so I feel like the bookies have probably had a win here because he went off injured just after half time on 16. So very stiff. Any punters on that one? I know a bunch were. So hard luck on that.
I think that it's one of those tough ones. I think that if your player gets subbed in the first half, the refund should be happening. I think in the second half, it's because at what point do you stop it? Like if your player
Yeah.
gets subbed in the last quarter and they still need 15 disposals, it's not a fair void. I mean, we asked for the bookies to be fair with us. There has to be a little bit each side. So that was just a
And
really, really
Wally,
stiff one.
also, like, you're about a 3% chance for any player to get injured in the game, right? So you're about a 1.5% chance for your player to get injured after half time. So, it's pretty stiff. It
Yeah,
really is.
exactly. All right, mate. Let's get into the games. We're going to kick off, mate. Have you seen how many primetime games Essendon have in the next month? It's
Yeah.
not good, mate. All right, so Essendon play GWS. Essendon's $9.50. The Giants are $1.06. The line is at 44.5 at the moment. Surely we're just all in on the Giants, Harro.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Actually, one thing that I found interesting with this is we had a listener question last week about how do the bookies set the line, and I sort of said that it's not very sophisticated what they do. It's kind of they might have a bit of a rating system as a bit of a guide, but they're kind of just trying to guess where the money's going to come, and then once the money comes, they have really low limits at the start, so they can't get burnt too hard if a load of money comes on one side because their limits are low. And they let the money dictate where the line goes until they find a happy place where they're getting, an even distribution. And this line came out at 30.5. I mean, that's just so clearly like way out, right? And so, but the problem is you can't really get much on it. So, and then you're feeding them information which moves the line. So, anyway, so the lines moved sort of 14, 15 points from where it opened up on this one, just through that weight of money and how they end up at that final figure. So just sort of I'd follow up on that point from last week anyway. But you're right, Wally. Like there's only one side you can be with here, and that's the Giants. And even though they're resting a couple of guys off a 5-day break, I'm still happy to have a crack at them here, mate. And their form, since that bye period is, it's fantastic. They've won 4 in a row. They met West Coast not long ago, I think a fortnight ago, who are probably at a similar level to the Dons, which I've mentioned before. They went over to the West and beat them by 59 points. I probably see this as an easier assignment for them this time around. Just along this run, also they've beaten Brisbane at the Gabba. They've defeated the Suns and just defeated the Cats. So, it seems like very strong form coming up against a Don side, which if you go through their form, I mean, they just lost to the Tigers by 9 points. The Tigers have been pretty well flogged by a couple of these top-ranging sides in the last month. They've lost to the Suns by 41, which looked like a pretty good effort. Freo by 41, Cats by 95 in their sort of recent run. So I kind of look at this and I go, well, the Dons have been losing either, by 40 odd or 90, because that Dogs obviously beat them by that 90 sort of point range as well. But since then, they now lose Caddy, Hobbs, Martin and Setterfield from last week's team. So they're probably even more vulnerable now than what they were in the past. So very, very keen to be with the Giants here, mate. It's a possible ladder type situation for a complete smackdown too. So, happy to be there. It's a pretty obvious one. And look, they need the percentage as well, Wally. It could all add up at the end of the season. Looking outside that, we know the punters love to play the disposal markets and whatnot as well. And Tom Green, he's one that we kind of missed on last week, or personally I backed him anyway, and he fell short. But I watched it, and he was very heavily looked after by Catkins from the Cats. He did a really good job on him. Now, the Dons, they lose Setterfield, who is probably the natural matchup for him. And so I feel like he's going to probably get off the leash here. I mean, Taranto had 34, Prestia 28, Hopper 27, all above their average. He's in that type of player mould. And his last 3 against the Dons as well, he's gone 39, 33, 34. His line's 30.5. The Dons allow the second most disposals in the comp. So pretty happy to play that as well as the Giants at the line, and maybe Giants to have a big win, maybe 100 plus. You never know.
Love that, Harro. Great way to kick off the round of footy. All right, now we go from there, and then it ramps up on Friday night. Brisbane hosting the Doggies. The Doggies, as I'm sure our good mate Dan Gorringe would have them on fraud watch as after Saturday's game. I've got no doubt he would have them on fraud watch because they are not beating top opposition, and Adelaide embarrassed them at their home on Saturday, and I watched that, and Adelaide absolutely dominated them. The Lions are $1.52. Doggies $2.55. The line is 2 goals. It's 11.5 points. Brisbane are just cooking at the moment, aren't they? They're just purring and getting ready for September. This is what they do. If the Doggies lose this, that's another one on the trot, and all of a sudden September's getting harder.
Yeah, mate. No, it is it's a huge game for the Dogs especially, but also a big game for the Lions as well because they really want to be able to get that top 2. And you look at the Lions run home, they've got no room for complacency in this. They could, they've basically got 6 losable games on the run home, the toughest run home of any side. So I said last week they need to be at their best, and that looks like they are around that sort of mark at the moment. So huge game for both sides. I think the $1.50 is probably about right. So I'm probably not tempted in the line or the head to head in this one. So okay. I'm going to have a look outside of that. And look, I really like the over total points in this. We just saw another Dogs game over 200. Recently, the Lions games have been going reasonably high as well. It's more the Dogs though. Like their games are consistently going, really high, highest. And you look at the line ladder, which our friend Lee puts out, and he it sort of shows the Dogs have been the best side to back for the overs all year. So happy to play in that space, Wally.
Right.
We saw the key forwards again against the Doggies. We'll speak about that. Look, the Lions don't have great key forwards, but they do have Hipwood up there. And his last 2 games against the Dogs, he's kicked 5 and 6. So I'm not expecting that, so much to happen. But he's got a good record against the Doggies, and obviously the Doggies are struggling with the key forwards. So maybe a bit of a speculator there as well. You did
Logan Morris as well, Harro.
Yeah, Logan Morris, not a bad.
He's
call.
The other one. If people like the kid, the one thing with this, we know this is not a Thilthorpe Fogarty situation. I understand that this is not a scenario where you have a Larky, but the prices for these two will be massive for those bigger goals, so that you'll get a good price even for 2 and 3.
Yeah, I think Hipwood you can get even money for 2 goals. So it's not a bad shout. You can definitely have a look. He's not my favourite player to back, though. Jeez, he can be bad in front of goals. And he can just go missing. But he's got the record and he's got the matchup. So worth considering that one as well, punters. So looking outside of that, look, there's some disposal guys which I've kind of found here. And look, I'm expecting a pretty contested game. And when, these two sides, they don't really tag. They kind of go head-to-head. And the Lions' best contested player, Lachie Neale, he's got a line of 26.5. His last 7 against the Dogs are all over 27. So he's got a good record here. And look, I feel like that sort of matchup really suits him. The other guy here is Ed Richards. His line's 25.5. I think he's only missed 3 of his last 11 at this line, and 2 of them were 25 on the knocker. So he's going really well. One of those misses was when he was tagged against the Swannies too. So really consistent player. I feel like he's going to have a good one here. Also, the backs against the Dogs is also something you want to look at most weeks because they do generally concede high to the backs. That opens a door for like a Dane Zorko. So they're the areas we're looking to play in this one, mate.
I'll tell you what, for a game that started with you don't want to back into their head-to-head on the line, there's bloody a lot of punting for us to do in that one. That's a cracker. Yeah. That goes Friday night footy.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
All right, mate. Saturday, Hawthorn take on Port. A far more enticing matchup here for Hawks fans after last week and going over to Freo and watching that. We're getting Port Adelaide down in Tassie. We're $1.16. So I thought we would shape up at about $1.30, especially with the additional injuries for Port and the players that might be coming back for Hawthorn, the Tasmania thing. I don't know how many of wins Kenny has left, and yes, it's against Hawthorn, then they'll be motivated, but I just don't know. So this was an interesting one. I thought $1.16 was so short though. Port Adelaide's $5.30, and that means the line is 29.5 points, Harro.
Yep. Yeah, I like Hawthorn, but one thing we need to consider, like we normally get perfect weather down in Tassie. We talk about it all the time. Actually, we could get a bit of rain and wind. So, look, I'm going to I'll do this preview based on no really bad conditions. But like, just bear in mind with your punting that you might want to adjust for the weather closer to the game. So, but one thing I've got down here, Wally, is I think there could be a bit of a revenge factor for Hawthorn. And we've seen it a couple of times this year, haven't we, when teams have played each other twice in the one season. Like the one that comes to mind was North Melbourne got embarrassed by Carlton earlier in the year. And then you saw them like really put in a massive one when they had the return game. And I feel like Hawthorn here were embarrassed down at Port, going back, I think, however many, round 6 or 7, whenever they played down there, or might have even been earlier, or later, sorry. But I think there's going to be some revenge factor here for Hawthorn. I think that they've got that game in the back of their minds, and that they're going to come out absolutely seething, mate. And I've already seen Port give up a few times this year, and when they get behind and it gets a bit too hard, they do have this sort of tendency to just let it blow out. And they've had these 3 75-point losses already. Hawthorn fully motivated, mate. I see them as a much sort of stronger outfit anyway. I don't have too many concerns about their loss to Freo. Like, it's a pretty tough game over there. They had more scoring shots. I thought they controlled the majority of that game. Obviously, Freo just ran it out a bit better and kicked a lot straighter. So I'm not really too worried. I was pleased to see Kalshadir make a return, Wally, and look good again. So that could add to them as well. So, mate, I'm pretty keen to be with the Hawks here. I'm happy with the line. I just hope the weather doesn't play too much of a role. But, even so, if there's a little bit of rain, not too worried. Hawks like it anyway. They're not too phased. They've got those good ground level players, and I expect the Hawks to get this done and possibly have a big win too.
Yep, very good. Well, when you're playing an inferior opposition, we played North down there in the rain last year and beat them by over a ton. So like you can still put on a big score if the other team gives up. So hopefully you're right there, Harro.
Yeah,
it gets me going, mate. Ahead of the weekend. All right, Saturday we move to Sydney v North Melbourne. Swans are rolling nicely at the moment. They got over a tricky St Kilda again. Look, they have to keep winning. We know what's on the line for them. They're $1.10. North Melbourne $7. Obviously, their season's not going very well. 44.5 points is the line. Swannies to keep rolling on here, Harro.
That line's out to 44 now, is it? That's
yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, look, it's probably a little bit too high. I've got 40 points here. Anyway, I said last week I just want to continue backing the Swans until they kind of have a loss. But like at $1.10, 44-point line, I'm probably not that keen. Don't see heaps of value there based on that. So I had a look around elsewhere, and again, mate, I thought the over total points in this one towards the back end of the season, when you get some teams that are kind of can't make finals and stuff, scores can go up a bit. And we've seen, I think, North's last 3 games all over 200 points. So they're conceding, and they're still managing to score a bit too. So, and look, the Swans' last 3 games are all over the 172.5, which is where this is set here. So quite keen on this, mate. The Swans definitely play. They play to score, and North look like they're allowing plenty of it. So I feel like we'll get a score here. Interestingly, like no Sherry for North. I mean, that's massive. I remember earlier in the season when I don't even know if he was out of the side. He just wasn't playing very well. He was carrying a bit of an injury,
Mm.
and it really affected North's form. He's such a big sort of key cog in their wheel, and they really lift with him around, and he's not going to be there. And look, Grundy, he's in great form as it is, and he's going to get a much weaker matchup this week. And he's $1.77 to have 20. He's had 9 in a row now, 19 plus. So 7 of the 9 he's got 20, the other 2 he's got 19. So he's going fine, Grundy. He was battling a bit earlier in the year, but he's back to some really good form. So happy to play, something around Reg Grundy, mate. What else? Oh, and the Swans. They've been very stingy, especially to midfielders mainly. So any disposal bets, I really want to focus on the Swannies. And one guy, look, he missed his line last week in a tough game where his team only had 314 disposals. But Errol Goulden, mate, back on the SCG with those wide wings.
Yep.
I don't think North will have a player really suited to go with him. And look, he got 41 against North last time, and you can get him at 25.5. In a matchup like this, where I think the Swannies are going to get on top, have plenty more of the footy than what they did against the Saints, I'm quite keen on Errol, mate.
Very good. Love that a lot. Yeah, also the Grundy one is a great shout, especially with no Sherry. So we'll get involved there. Your baggers take on Melbourne, Harro. Look, this is maybe, who knows, $2.52. Melbourne's $1.53. The line's 10.5 points. Can the baggers get a win for you?
No. And I'm not really worried about it either.
I know. The only thing is, Harro, you don't have your first pick. So it's not even like you're going to be rewarded at the draft for finishing down the ladder. We get it. So it's frustration everywhere. Anyway, let's get stuck into some angles on this game and how we're going to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so concerned. I think the Blues have been just about my best earner this year, despite watching them, have such a shocking year. But that's where my sort of alliance is, maybe more of my pocket than my heart. So anyway, look, I don't think this game, this is 12th versus. Can you believe the Blues are actually higher on the ladder than the Demons right now?
Amazing.
That makes no sense because the D's have played, for mine, better footy pretty much for the whole year, let alone their most recent form, which is way ahead of Carlton. So, if you just go through it, we went through the D's form last week, and they're running good sides like your Gold Coast, your Adelaides, your Collingwoods, they're running them deep into the last quarter, giving them really good games, where Carlton come up against that sort of strength of opposition and they're just getting blown away. I feel like North are maybe around a similar level to Carlton right now, and the Demons just accounted for them by 6 goals. I mean, I know North were with them up till sort of three-quarter time, but still 6-goal win is a 6-goal win. So you also look at the D's, you compare the two injury lists, right? And the D's pretty much have all of their key components all playing, all fit, all playing well. Where the Blues, to be fair to them, injuries do play a role, and they do have quite a lot missing right now. So, look, I think the 10.5 for the D's is somewhat of a gift. I think that they'll get this done comfortably. And just going outside of that, mate, I watched Cozzy on the weekend, one of my favourite players, Cozzy Pickett. So they sent Will Phillips to him, especially in the first half. He played a pretty tight tagging type role. Cozzy still managed to get 20 disposals, right? And he comes up against the Blues here with a line of 19.5. And I just don't see anyone in the Blues team capable of going with a Cozzy. All right, I could see them potentially, having a guy that could maybe keep an Oliver or a Petrarca a little bit quiet, but they don't have anyone to run around with Cozzy. And Cozzy's in good form. His last 3, he's gone 20, 24, 25. And a line of 19.5, I'm very happy to be with Cozzy. A bloke on the Carlton side of things who I think he's been holding his end of the bargain up, very consistently, is Adam Chera. And his line's 23.5, and he's over that 5 of his last 6. They're all games that Carlton have battled in as well, and he's still been able to get his 24 plus. So happy to have a look at Chera there as well, mate.
Very good. D's line, Cozzy line, Cherry line. That's a perfect little same game multi for your Saturday night there, punters. All right, the other game we've got on Saturday night is West Coast Richmond. I don't mean to laugh, but like, which one do you watch? Like, it's not an ideal night of footy, but that's okay. West Coast Richmond. I hope that there is something in this though. Well, I think that the spoon's decided. I actually quite like the Eagles here. They're $1.71. Richmond's $2.14. I think West Coast back on their home deck. They've been okay at times. The line's 4.5 points. What do you think? I think the Eagles can pinch a win here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Wally. I'm pretty keen on the Eagles here, and you know what it's like. I don't know if you've ever played in a really bad side before. I had a couple of years there where I did, and just to taste that feeling of victory when you've only had one all year, when you get a sniff, you can go a little bit harder. And look,
Yep.
West Coast have only had the one win this season, where the Tigers they've had four. It's not like they're on a long drought of having had a win last week. They travel over to the West, and they're going to be playing in front of Actually, they still get pretty good crowds, West Coast. So it'll be like a stadium full of West Coast fans, and I just see West Coast, getting up for this and getting a win. So, I've got the two sides relatively level. So when you got two sides level, you add in a home ground advantage, and it kind of works out fine from like a ratings point of view, anyway. So happy to be with West Coast, mate. And if you're going to be looking to play some player type areas, look, the defenders against the Tigers is normally a pretty good spot. And West Coast have got like your Bakers, your Duggins, the new fella McCarthy, all down there going really well. Flip it over to the Tigers' point of view, and the West Coast concede really high to midfielders. And so you could be looking at your Taranto, who had 34 on the weekend, or your Hopper, these guys to get their 25 plus. Probably some nice areas as well outside of back in West Coast, mate.
Yep, love that, mate. I had Taranto written down on the sheet prior because I was going to ask you about him, but he shapes up for, especially after last week, shapes up as one that I thought could go well. Great shout there on defenders as well, of course, against the Tigs. Now we move into Sunday's games. Geelong taking on St Kilda. This will be interesting because Saints have caused Geelong trouble. They beat them earlier in the year. The Cats get them down at Kardinia Park, though, $1.14. St Kilda's $5.75. The line with this one, Harro, is 33.5 points. How do we see it?
Well, look, I've been impressed with the Saints. Their last month, they've played all contenders, and they've held their own. I think I can go through them one by one, but they lost to the Pies by 34 points, but they were with the Pies deep into the last quarter, or sort of at least into the last quarter. They went away and played Freo and only lost by 12 points. You can see now, like Hawthorn just lost to Freo over there, so it's not a bad effort. They lost to the Hawks at Marvel, but they had level scoring shots. So I look at that and think that's not a bad effort either. And they just lost to the Swans by 5 points, and the Swans are playing that sort of top six type footy at the moment. So they get a 33-point start here, against a team that they don't have a bad record of. I reckon the Saints will have a little sniff here. And I don't expect them to win, but I don't mind that plus 33.5. I think you're going to get a pretty good run for your money. They're just playing really competitive sort of footy at the moment, the Saints. And so, I think like they're a decent bet at that line. The Cats was interesting, wasn't it? They were really outplayed by the Giants on the weekend.
Yep.
I wonder where that leaves them with their sort of premiership aspirations. I thought they were a bit better than that, actually. Maybe the Giants are just playing sort of really good footy, but I thought they were just sort of completely outclassed in that game, which we haven't seen that from the Cats much this year. So very interesting. They'll be looking to bounce back, but I'm pretty happy to get the 33-point start. Also, Wally, we get a 170-point total point line. And look, we've been going over in Cats games when they've been playing in decent conditions really successfully. And, we spoke about that last week, actually, that the Saints, they're not that underside that they have been in the past. And it's taken the market a little bit to wake up to that, I feel. And if you look at the line ladder, the Saints have had more games go over than what they have under this year. So I'd be happy to have a play at that 170.5 as well. Disposals, I haven't sort of picked any really clear ones out yet. So keep an eye out on the Twitter and stuff if I can come up with some disposal bets in that one. I know the Saints have been really restrictive through the midfield. They're not allowing opposition midfielders to get too busy. So just be a bit wary of that when you're looking at your Holmes types players and whatnot. But obviously the backs can be a good one against the Saints. Not like what it used to be, but they're still going okay. So there should be some areas there, but I haven't been able to find them just yet.
All right, mate, very good. As we always say on X, on Twitter, footyfgpod, that's where you'll get the more up-to-date information on these Sunday games. We'll obviously have a little bit more as close to the jump. Collingwood v Freo, I really like the pies here. The line's 20.5 points. Collingwood's $1.30. Freo travelling's $3.52. Pies back at home. They'll have players coming back in off a loss. And probably as good of a loss as you'd want in the position they're in at the moment. This just, for me, back on the G, shapes up as a massive, massive game for them to come out and flex.
Yeah, look, I sort of thought their form was wavering coming into the Suns game, and that kind of confirmed it for me. I think their issue, and look, they've got the players there to resolve it, whether they do or not, but it was they look quite slow through the midfield with Mitchell, Pendles, and Long, I think, being three of the mainstays in there. And I felt that, the Gold Coast midfielders were really able to expose them. How good was Anderson, Rao? They didn't even have Took Miller for most of the game. So, and they were still able to get the job done. And it was really the midfield who did it. And look, Freo, they do have a good midfield. And so I look at this Sarong Brayshaw angle. I think they're both at 27.5. When you consider like Rao and Anderson just went 32 and 34, I feel like there's a play on the two gun mids from Freo here. I also think I probably expect the Pies to win, but I don't think their value. I don't think that price is great. Freo, they're not too bad. They're going pretty well, and I feel like they're getting better as the year goes on. And I had a look at Freo's fixture. Right, this is actually massive for them because I think you need to get to 14 wins.
At least.
Yeah, and they don't have great percentage. So that could become a factor for them as well. They've kind of got 2 or 3 games. Well, they've got 2 games that they should definitely win, which will get them to 13. So they've got to find 2 wins out of their other 4 games. And they'll be looking at this basically as one of them, although they think they could win any game. But with the Pies maybe, with a couple out and showing a little bit of waning form, I could see Freo making this a really tight sort of contested game, which kind of leads us to the under total points as well, mate, which is, I think it's around that 164 sort of area. And 6 of Freo's last 8 games have been under that. So I sort of see this as a close-ish, tight, sort of contested sort of game with the Freo midfielders maybe being a good bet here too, mate. So that's where I said I think the Pies are going to be okay. They're going to obviously finish top. They should finish top 2 and get all their players right and have a real crack at it. But for now, I'm just a little bit cautious on them. The other area that I remembered going back to when these 2 sides played last time was Wagner did a really nice job on Nick Dacos. He kept him very quiet, and I would expect that matchup again. So if you're thinking about, Dacos having a bit of a rebound game, maybe save it because just the job that Wagner did last time sort of confirmed to me that he can do that job, and I don't see why they wouldn't go back to it here.
Okay, very good. Mate, the last game of the round is probably the game of the round. It's Adelaide versus the Gold Coast. The Crows at home are $1.40. Gold Coast $2.98. The line in this one, Harro, is 16.5 points. Geez, the Crows were impressive. I saw the Crows live on Saturday, and they were uber impressive. And they will be hunting for a top 2 spot. They will be hoping that a Brisbane slips up at some point and they can finish in that second spot. The other thing is that it's an 8-point game. Gold Coast and them are contending for that top 4 position. So as cliche as that is, it's a huge, huge game for them at home. I think they're going to turn up based on what I saw last week, but really keen to hear your thoughts on this one, mate.
It's a shame these two sides are playing each other because they're just both teams I want to be with at the moment. Yep. And so, look, I think the 16-point line's probably about fair. I think I've got the Crows winning, at home especially, and it's really hard to fault anything in the Crows' form. But, at a 16-point line, Gold Coast, they're pretty good. I'm probably just a little bit shy there. And I'm really looking forward to, I think Touk Miller is just a huge out, Wally. And so that kind of scares me off backing the Suns. I want to see how they go without him. I feel like he's just one of those players who he's just one of those really important players. They don't have that defensive midfielder that he can do that sort of job. And you saw a couple of the Pies midfielders really get going late, and I feel like that's when they were missing Touk Miller a little bit. So interesting to see who replaces him. I think it's one of these ones to listen to the pre-game press conferences and stuff and see if they give anything away there. Like what I would be listening out for is just in case they want to put Flanders into that role. If they fill Flanders into that role, look, he's going to be a great bet for like 25, 30 disposals because we know how high he can go when he gets that full midfield role. He's a real piggy. So, but, I've got no idea right now what they're going to do. If we get a little hint, then that might be something we could follow up on.
Yep.
Otherwise, mate, I view this as just a really tough game to bet into. Two sides that I really rate. We'll probably find out which one's going to be top 4 and not out of this game. And I probably expect it to be the Crows, but maybe not a hell of a lot of punting going on in this one. Aside from, and if we can pick up anything from after the teams are out or from the press conferences, mate.
Yep, very good. All right, Harro, that is a wrap on all 9 games. You've been great as always, but before I let you go, I'm going to need your best bet of the round.
Yeah, so I was tossing up between 2 today, Wally. It was the D's minus 10.5 or the Giants minus 44.5. Ooh. I felt like they were probably the 2. And just with the Giants, I love the Giants. I'm very keen on that bet. But just the 5-day break being away from home, I've decided, mate, I'm going to keep opposing Carlton. It's been a good strategy for us the last month or so. I'm going to take the D's at the minus 10, mate.
Absolutely love it, mate. Harro, have a great weekend. Enjoy the footy. Hopefully the Baggers can show some good signs while still losing, so we win our best bet. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you next week.
All the best, punters.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.